Hi, I'm going to show you how to make the beginnings of a book. Not the one-page book that we fold and cut the center of like we did in class, though I'll probably make a video on that too for anybody that hasn't had my class. That's a fun activity to do, and it's fun for teachers to use too. Takes a little bit more time. This is kind of like the beginning of bookbinding, which is making a book similar to what you would find in the library. It happens in many stages. Don't expect that in just a short video that you're going to make a complete bind book. But this is the first part, and this part's pretty neat. If you look at a book, you'll often see that right there on the spine, there are different sections almost where you can see that they weren't all just one big piece of paper folded together, but sections. Whoops. Right there, almost like where it loops and folds over. Those are called signatures. And it's spelled just like when you sign your name, S-I-G-N-A-T-U-R-E, signature. But the signatures are different sections that get put together in the book before it's bound together. So an easy way to do this, and again, you might need to modify what tools and supplies you have at home, but this is kind of neat to see how to do. So in this case, I'm just using regular 8.5 by 11 sheet paper or 8 by 10 paper. And I don't like to use that many sheets because I don't want to have to push the needle through too hard. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So in this case, I've only got 4 sheets. That's it. 4. That's all you need. Fold it in half. Fold it in half. Get a ruler. And if not a ruler, you can just even guesstimate. It's okay because you're just learning how. You're just practicing. And remember, whenever we try anything, we're going to make mistakes. And that's okay, because that's how we get better at things. So in this case, I marked it every couple centimeters. As you can see, I'll hold it up so you can see better in the light. But right on the center, I put those little dots. Notice how there's not a dot near the edge. The very edge of the paper here, there is not a dot. And same with the opposite edge. It's not right against, because that could rip the paper. Kind of like tear on the dotted line. We don't want to tear on the dotted line. We want those spaced enough that the stitches are close enough that it's got a good enough bind, but not so close together that it'll just rip apart. So you can pick where the dots go, but it's finding that sweet little Goldilocks spot of not too close, not too far. So every ½ inch is fine. It might not line up exactly, but it'll get you close. Every couple centimeters is fine. And then what you're going to do, I find is easy, is take a binder clip, if you have one. If not, a paper clip will do, or a clothespin. In this case, I have a binder clip. And I'm going to clip those pages together so they're nice and even. Again, I like showing you the wrong way sometimes. Not so they're slid apart, but so that they're nice and even. And this is going to work almost like a third hand. It's going to hold those pages together so they don't slide apart on you. And this is where you want to be very careful. And again, always ask your parents' permission so they're aware that you're going to be doing this. Remember that needle I talked about in that other video? In case you didn't see it, you're going to need a sewing needle and some either wax thread or dental floss. And you're going to take that needle. We're not going to sew through yet. Right now, we're just going to pre-punch our holes. So I don't know if you can see what I'm doing or not. Let's see. Yeah, you can kind of see. So I'm lining up the needle with that hole. I'm making sure my fingers are not across the back of the fold here, because then I'd be pushing right up into my finger. Don't do that. No. So you're going to push through. See, so it comes through and does not stab your fingers. But you're going to go all the way across through each one of those dots that you measured out or guessed out with your pencil. And as you go across, the paper's going to start to flop. So what you might want to do is even flip to the other side. And this is where this acts like a third hand, because it keeps that other side from sliding so much. Another way you can do this is you line your needle up with the back. And you just gently, whoops, sorry about that. That'd be like the blooper outtake. Make sure you put it on top of like a pad of paper or something. In this case, I'm going to use my wallet. Tilt the camera down so you can see. But I'm going to take that needle just like this with the back of the needle here so it doesn't press into the table and ruin my mom or my dad or my grandma's table. I'm going to make sure I press it right like that and then press down so it comes through. And again, right down like that, and press through so it comes down again. Always making sure, taking your time, this is the part you do not want to rush, that it's not going to poke through your fingers. And I know the paper's getting a little wrinkled, but it'll be okay, I promise. The paper can take it. Right, like that. And now we have a series of holes punched through both sides of the paper. So it'll make it a lot easier stitching. So then when you stitch, you're more just kind of pushing the thread through those holes. Just like if you were running a shoelace through one of those boards in kindergarten. Very similar to that. So we're going to take this needle and thread. And you can see I have a couple different ones prepared. And now we're going to sew it together. So that way we can take this clip off and that signature is done. So I'm going to take the needle and thread. And you'll have it on your needle, so it eventually will come out like this. See how it's doubled over? It's not tied to the needle. That's a mistake I see a lot of students tend to make if they don't pay attention. You would never do that. You would always pay attention. Always. I know it. So, again, it's not tied to the needle. It can flow through it, but it is doubled over. And right at the end, whoops, right at the end, the two ends are tied together. Now, I could just assume that you know this and go forward, but some of you have maybe never done this before. So instead, what I'm going to do is find my handy dandy scissors, and I'm going to cut this off, and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to cut it off near the end. That way I can use this thread again. So right where the knot is, boom, cut. And take this out. Now, if you are using thread, that's okay, but the thread after a while from sewing sometimes wants to break down. So one of the things a lot of bookbinders use, if you have thread, go ahead and use it. You can run it across a candle that's not lit. You don't need fire for this. I know I like fire for projects, but you don't need fire for this. You can run it across a piece of wax or even a light colored crayon or a crayon that matches the color of your thread and sew it. Or you can use just dental floss, waxed dental floss. Ask your parents first. Don't use up all the dental floss in the house and have your family upset that you're using it. So I like to take an end in one hand and the box in the other and pull my arms wide as I can go. Now, did you know proportionally most of us, not all of us, but most of us are about the same height as the width of our arms outstretched. Ooh. So proportionally often, unless you have really super long arms, and that's a longer length, or short arms, then you're like a T-Rex like me, you can figure out your height is about close to the width of your arms. But here we go. I'm going to thread the needle. Now, because it's waxed, it likes to hold its shape. It's not flopping around like a piece of thread. And the hole on this needle is not that small, so I can just push it through and thread it. If that's hard for you and you feel frustrated, you might get the end of it frayed, so you can always just snip that little tip off the end. So that way it's easier to push back through the needle. But another trick you can use, and let's see if I can do this in front of the camera, is you take the thread, oops, did you see that? I pulled it back with my fingers, so you almost can't see it. And that makes it easier to control. And then from there, I just take the head of the needle and place it over the thread. And then I pinch the other end of the thread and I pull and it's threaded on. So whichever way works for you, those are two ways I like to use to thread my needle. And again, it's doubled up. It is not tied to the needle itself. Just pull it. So it's like a double folded over piece of thread. And here at the end, I'm going to put the needle down on my desk. Here at the end, I have these two threads. I'm going to treat them like they're one string. So I'm going to make a loop out of the two, just like the letter P or the letter Q. And I'm going to take that end and push it through that loop and pull it until I get a knot. Just like that. You don't have to sit there and tie it together and hope that it doesn't slide or go, oh wait, it's tying all the way to the needle. Nope, don't tie it to the needle. Just do a loop, swoop it through, and pull. So you get a knot. Now that we have our needle and our knot and our thread, I'm going to take our signature that we pre-punched and show you the easiest way to sew it to keep threads out of the middle of your book. So, take your needle, go to your holes here, go to your second hole. I know we're skipping one, trust me. Go to your second hole. and carefully start to push down. Don't stab down because your fingers are underneath. And pull through, but not all the way through. Oh, see that? And then you're going to poke your needle up the first hole. Remember I said, don't worry, we won't forget about it? We didn't forget about it. So that needle's coming up that first hole, just like that. And now, remember how there's 2 threads there? Take your needle and go between the 2 threads. See, now we don't have to tie any knots on our paper. We're just using the knot that's already in the thread to loop through, because, it makes a loop. So it makes it a little easier because it's almost like it's hugging on and keeping it from going anywhere. And if you pull it snug so it's, you don't have to pull it hard, you don't want to rip the paper, but if you pull it so the thread is there, it can't, this part of the thread, that knot can't go through the hole because the thread you're sewing with is blocking it. So it locks it in. And now from here, it's just like regular sewing. You go in through one side, pull it, make sure it goes all the way through both loops, and then flip it over, back through. Don't wrap around the book. We're sewing it. Over, under, over, under, over, under. Kind of like an ABAB pattern in weaving, if you remember that. So over, under, so in and out on both sides. And right now I'm doing this kind of blind to the camera. I can't see the camera. You can be making all sorts of faces at me and I would never know, because you would never do that, ever. And then I push it back through. And you can see from there how it looks with the knot on the back. And on the front, you can see the only thread that you don't see any knots on the inside, and that's where you would open your book. And we want to keep the knots to the back, so we're going to sew through like this. And again, over, under, over, under. Whichever side you just came out of, you need to go back through that same side if you get confused. And take your time. I'm doing this pretty quickly, but you got to remember I've had a needle and thread in my hand since I was 4. So thanks to my grandmother, who was a teacher too. She taught PE. I'm sure you've heard me say that before. But now we're on the back. And you can see we're at the end. What do you do now? So what I like to do is take the needle and see those last 2 loops there? Right there. I'm against the spine. So I'm kind of like through the loop. Just go through like so. And then you can tie a knot right here. Don't cut it and tie a knot. Use your needle to put the thread through where you want it to go. And then you can cut it. So I'm going to pull it, pull it, pull it, pull it, pull it, pull it. So it's tied around. And it might not be as snug as you want, but guess what? It's not going to go anywhere, and you're learning, and it's okay. Once you have that, you can add a knot or 2. It doesn't take much. And from there, you can trim your thread, and you've got your first signature, your very first signature. Now, I don't want to waste your time. This is a video I'm making that is during a week where you don't even have any assignments. I'm doing this because I can understand what it'd be like to be home and bored while we're all staying home and trying to stay safe. And so this is one last thing to give you some way to make something fun to do. And if you happen to do this, great. If you make a couple of these, I can show you how to bind them together. I'll make the second video on how to join your signatures together and bind it if I see students send me pictures of signatures that they make at home. Sound like a deal? Sounds like a deal. All right, so that's our first signature. I've got another one to go, but I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, rewind it, or again, post in the comments in Google Classroom where I'll share this video. Feel free to follow along in Google Classroom. And even if you don't make it, if you watch and you enjoy these videos, send some comments and let me know if there's anything else you want me to show you or demonstrate for you artistically while we have this time. All right, thank you and have a great one. Bye.